Sean, can you share any updates on your plans at quarterback position this week?
No updates, Mike. I'm eating my bagel. I was hoping to be chewing it when you asked that question.
What kind of bagel? Is it everything bagel, or is it like sesame seed? Or
It's a poppy seed steamed bagel, which are hard to find, actually.
That's Sean Payton doing everything he can to give no information about how the quarterback reps will be divided between Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill, with Drew Brees out for at least 2 weeks, 5 fractured ribs, reportedly, collapsed lung, reportedly. I assume 5 days later the lung is no longer collapsed. Peter, I'm impressed by Sean Payton's ability to put the clamp on everyone. You know, we've seen coaches try to pull this off before, where they're not going to announce any of their plans at quarterback. You'll find out on Sunday. Well, the problem is, once you start showing up at practice and you've got plenty of people there and someone's going to say something to someone, and the next thing you know, someone's going to say something to a reporter, and we're going to have the Jameis Winston is the starter, Taysom Hill is the starter, they're going to split the reps, whatever they've been doing at practice. 2 days of practice now, Wednesday, Thursday. There's been nothing. That's amazing to me. That's next level coach putting the fear of coach into everyone in the building to keep their damn mouths shut, and we still don't know what's going to happen.
Mike, there's a reason for that. Not only, I'm sure, as Sean said, everybody zip your lip, which doesn't always work, but the biggest reason is the media rules this year, okay? You cannot have personal contact with a player. Now, that isn't to say that if you've got, let's say, Michael Thomas's cell number, that you don't text him and say, hey, what's going on? Or, hey, you got 5 minutes. But most this year, I am finding that a lot of the stories that you normally might read that would have a significant amount of depth don't have that depth to them, because you can't sidle up to guys this year and say, hey, what's going on out there? And so that is what is the big difference. Sean Payton can control this by when the media portion of practice is open. Usually with most places, for local beat people, practice will be open, 15, 20, 25 minutes. Okay? And it's very, very simple to control what happens in those 15, 20 minutes, let's say. And that is alternate snaps between Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. Have them do exactly the same thing. Mirror each other. And, I read on Wednesday that that's exactly what Payton did. But, Mike, this sort of disguises my first thought when I saw Ed Werder's report the other day about the injury to Brees. I said, everybody is going to think that either it's Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston, probably most people, Jameis, as it turns out. I do think it's going to be a job share. I'm not saying 50-50, but I think Taysom Hill is going to play a lot, more than he normally plays. My gut feeling is the job is Jameis's, at least, for now. But I think it's going to be a job share. And if Jameis Winston turns it over multiple times, I think Sean Payton basically says, Taysom, get in there. It's your game. So we'll see what happens.
I think Sean Payton views this as a challenge, too. And when you've been coaching as long as he has, and these moments come around where there's an opportunity to come up with.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, it's new. It's different. It's not the same old thing every week. Now, he's one of the coaches that constantly challenges himself to find new ideas, find new plays, add wrinkles to the offense. But still, this is the closest thing you're going to have to an in-season tear it down and try to rebuild it. And I'm sure that given the amount of time he spends thinking creatively about his offense, he's had an idea as to what he would do this year. You have to have that idea. When your starting quarterback is 41 and he missed 5 games last year, you have to have some tentative plan for what you're going to do if you get into this position. So, it's probably been a very fun week for him. They're not playing an opponent that is impossible to beat, even though the Falcons aren't as bad as 3-6 would suggest. It is going to be fun, and that's how I look at this game. It's just kind of a game that otherwise would have been, I look at it and I think, man, this is going to be exciting to see what Jameis Winston does. The last time we saw him, he was throwing the football into the gut of a Falcons player who took it in for a touchdown to end the season and end his career in Tampa Bay. We get to see what he does against the Falcons now. We get to see what Taysom Hill does. We get to see how they interact with the other players and what the offense can do. And can the defense hold up? And can the Saints keep pace? That's the other side of it as well. There isn't much margin for error for these teams that are at the top of the NFC. You have 1 or 2 bad weeks, you go from the top to the middle of the pack. So it's critical that Sean Payton finds a way during Drew Brees' absence to win these games, however it takes.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, somebody close to Payton told me this in the offseason when I asked him about what do you think of the match between Payton and Jameis Winston. He said it's going to be fantastic because he said Jameis will know the bottom line. And the bottom line is you're not going to turn the ball over and be Sean Payton's quarterback, period. If you turn it over, you can have a seat next to whoever on the bench. And so that is what is at stake for Jameis Winston. You know, if people who say, yeah, he needed a fresh start after Tampa and needed a new coach and everything like that, well, he's got one. He's got one of the best offensive coaches in recent history. And now let's see if he can resuscitate his career. It is all on Jameis Winston's shoulders right now.
Yeah, and even though the ultimate grade in what is pass-fail when it comes to a first-round upper-tier quarterback is fail for Jameis Winston, there were periods where he was looking pretty good. I remember in 2016, his second season, there was some MVP chatter. They had a great run that culminated in a Sunday night game that was actually flexed to primetime, Buccaneers at Cowboys, and that's when it all fell apart in 2016. But he's had his moments. And even though he had plenty of interceptions last year, he threw plenty of touchdown passes as well, and he had a decent completion percentage. And I think Sean Payton, they know who we mean. Sean Payton will be in a good position to get the best of Jameis and minimize the worst of him. Lions and Panthers get together, Peter, on Sunday, and there are questions about both starting quarterbacks in that game. Matthew Stafford throwing again. He's got a finger problem, and it seems like there's always something that Matthew Stafford is finding a way to play through without complaint. I respect that about him. And it really is odd to see him now in year is it 12? Is it 11 or 12? He was drafted in 2009. I always screw that up.
2009, it's year 12.
This is 12. This is year 12 for Matthew Stafford, and he's just never quite fully fulfilled his potential. He's had some great years. And the Lions are just hanging around at 4-5. I don't think anybody expects them to pull their way back into the playoff chase. But no matter whether they're in or not in, relevant or not relevant, Stafford always does everything he can to find a way to play. And I expect him to play and probably play well on Sunday.
I mean, I think he probably will, Mike, but I think you're right. When they expanded the playoffs, I think everybody said, well, you know, now more opportunity for everybody. And I get that, but, I mean, there's opportunity for a hot team playing pretty consistently well, and that's the Minnesota Vikings. I will be very surprised if the Lions can rev it up enough to make the playoffs out of a very crowded playoff field in the NFC.
You know, but if they would win this game, turn around on Thursday and beat the Texans as they'll be favored to do, how rare that is for the Lions to actually be favored to win on a Thanksgiving game.
Yeah.
They're 6-5. And, you know, there's always that team that is around 500 this time of year that finds the gas pedal and mashes it and starts rattling off. And, you know, right now it's the Vikings, but that could end as soon as Sunday when they play the Cowboys. Who knows? But it's that team that just strings them together in unlikely fashion, and before you know it, they're in that discussion week 16, week 17. If they win their last two and this team loses, that team loses. I mean, it's a problem in the NFC. There's so many good teams, and one of those playoff spots is going to be burned on a crap team from the NFC East that it really does make it hard for somebody who's currently below 500 or at 500 to get into the picture. But we'll see how that all plays out. Also in that game, the Carolina Panthers are the last team you see there in the hunt at 3-7. And they're better than 3-7, but it's going to be hard to get the victory if they don't have Teddy Bridgewater. There was a report yesterday from NFL media that Bridgewater's not going to play with that MCL injury he suffered on Sunday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bridgewater disputed that. Nothing's been decided yet, so we'll see. You know, if it's not a serious MCL strain, you can stabilize the knee and play. You're running the risk that you're going to injure it even more. And for a guy who lost 2 seasons to a knee injury, you assume he's going to err on the side of caution, but I guess there's also the chance, hey, I've gone enough years without playing football, I'll throw caution to the wind, let's just go play and try to win. But that's going to be a big factor in this one as well. I picked the Panthers to win under the assumption as of yesterday that Bridgewater would be playing. Without him, that does change everything, although I'm not going to write them off. P.J. Walker was pretty damn good in the XFL. Blink and you missed the XFL. And with that connection to Matt Rule, it could be interesting. But, yeah, I think they're far better off if Bridgewater plays. And officially for now, it hasn't been decided. He'll get a designation today, questionable, doubtful, or out, based upon what the Panthers think he's able to do come Sunday.
Look, P.J. Walker, Robbie Anderson, Matt Rule, Temple's gift to the NFL, really. And all of those guys, to me, have been showing the NFL that they were wrong. I mean, we'll see if P.J. Walker gets his shot and if he can prove that. But, Mike, all I can say is it's a weird thing because you're not around teams. But I bet 5 people in the Panthers organization at some point this year from the draft to today have basically said, if this guy ever gets a chance to play, look out. So anyway, we'll see.
We'll see. It's either going to be Bridgewater or Walker, and if all else fails, it's Will Grier. And even though he was decent at West Virginia, what we've seen from him so far in his NFL career, let's just say the Panthers hope it's not Will Grier. The Cowboys hope it was Dak Prescott, but obviously that's over. Andy Dalton is back, though. He missed time with concussion. He was on the COVID-19 reserve list. He actually was positive for COVID-19. He now comes back to lead the Cowboys into a game against the Minnesota Vikings. And even though the Cowboys at 2-7 are still alive in the NFC East, I just don't get the impression that they realize it or that they want to be. I mean, the window continues to be open, and they keep flying into the pain above the opening. And who knows? Look, every time we think we know what's going on in the NFL, we find out that we don't. This one looks like a game the Vikings should win. They're 7-point favorites, Peter. But Andy Dalton is definitely going to give them a higher level of quarterback play than what they've seen in recent weeks with the guy from James Madison, whose name, thankfully, I've already forgotten.
Ben DiNucci.
Oh, no, I liked it better when I didn't remember his name.
Hey, Mike, the one thing about the Cowboys is that was the first game last week against Pittsburgh where they showed the kind of life on offense and defense that we just hadn't seen since Dak Prescott went down. And, I mean, you certainly didn't see that on defense before last week. But the one other thing I would just say about this team right now, I mean, this, as you can see by looking at the standings, they obviously have a shot. But I think the biggest thing that's been missing with the Dallas Cowboys is an impactful Ezekiel Elliott. And to look at him and to see 3.8 yards a carry is just, it's not acceptable. And obviously you have to say, man, their offensive line has been porous because it's almost new. I get it. But if that running game continues to be as unproductive as it has been, it's a mirage. You know, the Cowboys have scored 41 points in the last 4 weeks. That's prehistoric levels of scoring compared to today's NFL. And unless they get that running game better, I don't see that helping or that improving.
And they're going against a Vikings defense that really is a bunch of no-names, but they played well against the Bears on Monday night. And the Cowboys, we talked about the opportunity the Lions have in front of them. The Cowboys can double their wins. They can match their win total through 10 weeks of the season between Sunday and Thursday when they host the Washington football team. If they could pull the upset in Minnesota, they could be 4-7. Eagles, if they lose to the Browns on Sunday, they drop another one, and the Giants are off, and maybe the Cowboys can do a little something. I'm sure the NFL would love to see, of the 4 teams in it in the NFC East, they'd love to see the Cowboys rise up and win that division, because obviously they are the only one that draws any real attention.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.